Hello and welcome to Pathfinders, a podcast series from RBC Capital Markets, where we uncover the key trends and catalysts shaping the fast-moving world of biopharma and healthcare. I'm your host, Joe Coletti. Today we're streaming from RBC's Global Healthcare Conference here in New York, and we're going to be exploring innovative therapeutics intended to improve the lives of patients with serious retinal disease. Joining us is George Elston, Chief Financial Officer and Head of Corporate Development at Eyepoint Pharmaceuticals, which is developing groundbreaking programs such as DuraView and EYP 2301, designed to provide patients with better visual outcomes. George is a seasoned financial executive with over 30 years of experience in the biopharma industry, including leadership roles at 2X Oncology and Enzivant Therapeutics, culminating in his current position at Eyepoint Pharma, where he drives financial strategy and corporate development to help realize the company's ambitious goals. Today, we'll talk about Eyepoint's innovative approach to therapeutics, combating retinal disease, their developing programs and trials and partnership network, and what investors should be looking out for in this exciting and evolving space. George, it's great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Joe. Happy to be here.
So in light of the macroeconomic environment, how's Eyepoint managing its capital allocation priorities right now? Particularly, I want to hear this from your lens as CFO and head of corporate development, which I think is a different angle that we always hear on our episodes.
That's an important question on every investor and company's mind. And I think from Eyepoint's perspective, we are fortunate that we are in a very good capital position. We're in 2 global phase 3 trials with DuraView. Those trials are called Lugano and Lucia. They're 2 global trials. We're expected to have completion of enrollment this year with top-line data readout in the second half of 2026. And importantly for us, we're funded not just through those trials, but into 2027. We ended March with $318 million in cash, and that puts us in a very good place. To your point, it's been a very difficult market. I think the entire space has been under a lot of pressure, including a lot of our investors, but we were fortunate to have raised capital on some DME data that we had in 2024 and put us in a really good position forward. I think on the allocation perspective, we've been very focused on the execution. We are a wet AMD story. Our capital is allocated to completion of those wet AMD trials and preparing for an NDA filing. And that includes our commercial manufacturing facility, which is in Northbridge, Massachusetts. So we are not just focused on completing the phase 3 and hopefully getting a positive readout, but also completing registration batches, preparing for a pre-approval inspection, and ultimately commercial launch.
So with the market for retinal disease treatments expanding, how is Eyepoint positioning itself to lead the next wave of innovation that's coming?
Yeah, and thank you for that question. I think we are leading that. I think Eyepoint at its core, we are focused on delivery of drug to the back of the eye. We have a long history of developing innovative programs, leveraging our Duracert technology, and now the newest version of that is Duracert E, which stands for erodible, and that's the technology used in DuraView, which is in the phase 3 trials. What we love about the DuraView program, which is vorolanib, it's a tyrosine kinase inhibitor. It's essentially the first new mechanism of action in retinal disease in the last 15 to 20 years. If you look at the treatment of wet AMD in particular, it's been a series of anti-VEGF biologics, and they all work well, but they essentially have the same mechanism of action. And so as we think about DuraView as a sustained 6-month option, it really represents a brand new MOA and new approach to treating that disease.
So you mentioned Duracert and Duracert E in particular. Can you talk a little bit about the kind of commercial and strategic differentiation around it in your view, and also kind of how you're thinking about the long-term value that it's going to enable for the company?
Yeah, so the Duracert technology is core to Eyepoint. It is our sustained delivery technology. It's got 4 FDA-approved products using Duracert, and that's a non-erodible technology. And essentially what it is, it's a solid insert that's injected into the vitreous, which is the large space in the eye. And what this technology does, it allows us to deliver sustained release, zero-order kinetics, meaning same dose 24/7 for 6 months or longer with DuraView. And it really represents a brand new approach in treating these diseases. You know, the current biologics work, and they work very well, and they're very safe, but they don't last long. You know, a biologic in the eye, you know, on average, they last about 28 days. And so what we have is this potential for constant dosing, constant drug on board, and a new mechanism of action, giving physicians and patients a new way to treat these diseases.
So you mentioned DuraView again. I wanted to give you a chance to just expand a little bit on DuraView. How are you thinking about its potential to sort of shift the broader competitive landscape? And, what do you see the implications for value creation are?
Yeah, so I think most importantly, DuraView is not another anti-VEGF, right? What we do is bring a brand new mechanism of action to wet AMD. It's really differentiated in a sense that, if you look at every new product in wet AMD over the last 15, 20 years, their claim is we last a little bit longer than the prior drug user, and we bring a very different value proposition to doctors and patients. And our proposition is we will work in conjunction with the biologics, not instead of. It's not an either or, it's both. And we've always positioned and talked about DuraView as a maintenance therapy. And if you look at our phase 3 trial design, we're essentially loading patients with a aflibercept, get your patient stable, put in DuraView. If our phase 2 data holds, we took 2/3 of patients 6 months or longer with just our drug, and actually 50% of them went a full year. If physicians need to supplement with a biologic, that's fine too. And so we are not looking to replace them. We're looking to work in conjunction with them and again, bring that second mechanism of action to these diseases.
With potential FDA impacts on the horizon, how is Eyepoint positioning its DuraView program to sort of navigate any potential headwinds that you may encounter?
Yeah, so we've been very fortunate as a company. We did a robust phase 2 trial for DuraView and wet AMD. We also did one in DME, which is diabetic macular edema. And we've been engaged with the agency, throughout that process. We held type C meeting. We've had an end of phase 2 meeting for wet AMD. We've just scheduled an end of phase 2 meeting for the DME indication for this summer. And what's been important in ophthalmology so far is we've seen no change in the FDA. We have the same program manager, the same attendees at our meetings. And in fact, in our recent interaction, the FDA has been on time or early. So, it appears, and we hope it continues, that at least within the ophthalmology division, it's unchanged.
Excellent. And we want to talk a little bit about partnership models and collaboration. When you think about partnership models, what kinds are sort of most strategic for Eyepoint today? And how do you sort of determine and look for and evaluate the right fit?
Yeah, and that's a good question. We spend some time thinking about that. Retina is a unique space, certainly here in the United States. In the United States, there are about 2,400 retinal doctors. The commercial footprint to reach them is not that heavy of a lift. Approximately 70 sales reps and a commercial organization can address that. And so we're gearing Eyepoint to launch this product in the United States. Ex-US is a very different story. The treatment dynamics are quite different. And so we've said publicly that we do plan on bringing in a global partner for ex-US, and we're open to even some potential co-partner, co-promotion in the United States. But clearly ex-US, we're certainly going to look to use a partner to launch this.
In this role, are there any kind of major lessons that you have learned or you would impart on people who maybe are looking to become a new CFO or may be growing into those kind of roles in the future? Anything that you've learned over the years that you think would surprise somebody maybe coming to the role, or are your lessons of the trade, if you will?
I think starting at the beginning, and finance and and accounting people in general are risk averse. So one of the first conversations I have with people that want to go into biopharma is don't do the math, because if you do the math, you will never go into biopharma. But the potential to be involved with a drug that can change patients' lives is really exciting, and is what drives me and my colleagues at Eyepoint every day. I've been in the industry a long time, and I think I have seen just about everything, the highs and the lows and the upturns, and, no CFO is worth their salt unless they've almost run out of cash at least once. And I've been there and really don't want to do that again. And so I think for financial executives, as you think about entering into biopharma, I think an important message is to control your burn, be bold about that. You see a lot of companies making mistakes. They raise money and they spend a lot of money on furniture, fixtures, leases. Investors want you to spend that money on drug development and clinical trials. And you're seeing a lot of that reversion today. A lot of companies that got funded several years ago that maybe shouldn't have. This is really the first time in my memory where you're actually seeing biotech companies go bankrupt and they're being forced to return cash to shareholders. And you don't ever want to be in that position. Hire wisely, manage your burn, ask tough questions, and be good stewards of your cash. Biopharma is one of those interesting spaces where every day I will have less cash tomorrow than I do today. And so use it well.
I think that's great advice. Final question is sort of for folks listening to this. If there's like one or two things you want them to sort of take away about your company, what do you want them to remember?
Yeah, I think, Eyepoint is really a story on execution. Our team has just done a remarkable job over the last 4 years. If you look at DuraView, we dosed our first patient in 2021 in a phase 1 trial. Here we are in 2025 in the middle of 2 global phase 3s. Lugano trial is over 90% enrolled. Lucia is over 50% enrolled. And it's all about execution. It's about getting the right people around the table and really believing. And we're really proud of where we are. We are drug developers. We are focused not just on getting through the clinic, but getting the drug approved, and more to follow.
George, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for being at the conference, but also thanks for joining us for the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks very much for having us. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Pathfinders in Biopharma, brought to you by RBC Capital Markets. Please remember to subscribe to get more great content and be alerted about future episodes. This episode was recorded on May 21st, 2025. If you'd like to learn more or continue the conversation, please visit rbccm.com/biopharma. See you all next time.
This content is based on information available at the time it was recorded and is for informational purposes only. It is not an offer to buy or sell or a solicitation, and no recommendations are implied. It is outside the scope of this communication to consider whether it is suitable for you and your financial objectives.